Big new polling today shows Kamala Harris with some momentum over Donald Trump in key battleground states, including a big lead in the critical state of Pennsylvania, where, according to a new poll out today from Quinnipiac, has Harris now 6 points ahead in Pennsylvania. And in Michigan, she's up 5 over Trump. In Wisconsin, it is closer. Harris up by just 1, which is actually a bit below the average of polls. But to discuss this and more is senior official for the Trump-Vance campaign, Corey Lewandowski. He also served as the campaign manager for the Trump 2016 campaign. Corey, good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
You worried about these new polls?
I'm not worried about the polls. The only polls that are going to matter is just shy of 7 weeks from right now, when the American people get to finish voting. When I say finish voting, it's because, Dan, some places have already started.
Right.
Ballots are already out in Pennsylvania.
So shouldn't you be concerned then?
No, because here's what I think. I think the American people have an opportunity between two very different candidates. They have a candidate whose record in the White House is such where they had economic security and national security and homeland security was a priority. And they have a candidate who's in the White House now as the vice president, who has said this border wall is a vanity project, that in the state of Pennsylvania, I won't allow fracking. And that I don't support.
But I mean, that's the pitch, right? But it sounds like, again, if you believe the polls, that at least in Pennsylvania, for now, they're not buying that.
Look, I think we're going to have to see, because what I believe is the American people have a long time. And what we've seen, very honestly, is one of these candidates has almost refused to sit down and answer the tough questions from most of the mainstream media. We've seen a couple interviews recently, a couple one-on-ones, including one yesterday. But we haven't really understood what her positions are on the issues that affect people the most. We've heard some pie-in-the-sky things, but for 3.5 years you've had the opportunity to be part of this administration. Why is it only on day one you're going to implement these programs and they haven't been implemented already?
Let me ask you, there was a letter that was just released. 100 former security officials, GOP, worked for past Republican administrations, including President Trump's, in national security roles, as well as some former members of Congress. They say the following: we firmly oppose the election of Donald Trump as president. He promoted daily chaos in government, praised our enemies and undermined our allies, politicized the military and disparaged our veterans, prioritized his personal interest above American interests, and betrayed our values, democracy, and this country's founding documents. Your response?
My response is it has absolutely no weight to the American people who are suffering from an economy which is crushing them, an immigration system which continues to allow tens of millions of people to come into this country and, completely have disregard for our laws. So, these people have a grievance. Some of them have lost their elections, as you know. Some of them are no longer in politics. Some people wanted to disparage Donald Trump or candidly lie. And look, we saw this in the last election where we had all these national security figures who told us that the Hunter Biden laptop story was a fake, and it had all the hallmarks of a Russian disinformation campaign. Well, come to find out, guess what? The Hunter Biden laptop story was 100% true. And the people who perpetuated the narrative that it was true were blocked on social media. So, look, does anybody who's having a hard time paying their bills or putting fuel in their car or food on their table say, wow, what do one of these former 100 individuals have to say? And does it impact my life? The short answer is no.
Let me ask you, Trump had a rally today, in the last, actually, half an hour ago. He seemed more disciplined. Have you been talking to him? Have you been saying to him, he seemed less about the personal attacks. He seemed more about focusing on the future, more based in policy. You're smiling. Are you smiling because I'm asking the question, or are you smiling because you're saying, hey, it worked?
Well,
he actually listened.
No, listen. Look, for anybody who says that they're going to tell Donald Trump what to say, that's not going to be the case. But you have to remember, Donald Trump, over the course of this campaign, particularly here in New York, has laid out specific policy objectives that he wants to do if he's given the opportunity to go back to the White House. We saw the economic policy speech he made here in New York 2 weeks ago. What do we see tonight? Specific things that he wants to achieve. And last night, we were in a town hall in Flint, Michigan, with Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders, where he answered specific questions from people who were concerned about how he can impact their daily lives. That is the Donald Trump that I think wins this election. Specific policy issues, going out and telling people, here's, if you elect me, what I'm going to do to make your life better. That's the message that continues to resonate across the socioeconomic status, regardless of race, religion, ethnicity, or creed. People want to know how you're going to make their lives better.
There's a New York Times article this week about you.
I love that,
right?
By the way.
Corey Lewandowski, the headline, Corey Lewandowski was fired in 2016.
True.
Why is he back at Trump's side? And then the subhead is, Donald Trump often finds comfort in Mr. Lewandowski's feisty instincts and off-color humor, but some Trump aides worry about his penchant for making his own headlines.
Well,
and it said you would not comment.
Here's the greatest part. I'm a volunteer for this campaign. I've left my family, which is very hard. I've got 4 beautiful young kids who still like me, I think. And so to get on the campaign trail for 3 months because I want to make this country great again and I want to do everything I can to help Donald Trump. You know, when the New York Times wants to write a story about a volunteer in a presidential campaign, boy, the old gray lady has fallen pretty far down. And what's amazing, I didn't see this story on the other side when David Plouffe took over and all the money that he's made from outside lobbying and now trying to have an influence on the presidential campaign.
I didn't think the article was that bad, by the way.
Look,
I bet you thought it was going to be worse.
You know what they call me? They call me a chaos agent, an agent of chaos.
Maybe.
Hey,
okay,
you know what? You know what I am? I'm a winner. I'm a winner because I can pick winners. And in 2016, when I ran the campaign, Donald Trump won. I'm here to help him win again, so that's my goal.
Let me ask you, Donald Trump has now sent out on Truth Social a statement for the second time. He said, when I win, these people that cheated will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law, which will include long prison sentences so that this depravity of justice does not happen again. Please beware that this legal exposure extends to lawyers, political operatives, donors, illegal voters, and corrupt election officials. Those involved in unscrupulous behavior will be sought out, caught, and prosecuted at levels, unfortunately, never before seen in our country. It's a scary threat, isn't it? Coming from the guy who's maybe president of the United States. He's going to prosecute election workers and political operatives and donors.
Is there anything more important to our democracy than making sure we've got free and fair elections?
But there's no evidence that any of that there was anything wrong. He's saying he's going to prosecute
He's saying if you're doing something wrong and you're committing a crime in the process.
No, he's saying the election was stolen in 2020.
But here's what he's saying for 2024. If you are committing a crime, you're voted when you're not supposed to, you've done something against the law, we're going to find you, we're going to prosecute you, we're going to make sure that this country, the greatest country the world has ever seen, has established a system that one person gets 1 vote, not one person gets 2 votes. And if you're not a U.S. citizen, you don't have the right to vote in this country in federal elections. So we're going to make sure that whether you're a worker or you're a politician or you're a volunteer, if you're breaking the law and we find out about it when this election is over, we're going to make sure you're prosecuted.
So even if there's no evidence that that's actually happening,
no, but
it might as well make the threat, right?
It's like saying to somebody, if you go rob a bank and we catch you, we're going to prosecute you.
But imagine me saying to you out of nowhere, Corey Lewandowski, I want to give you a warning. And I say it seriously, not as a joke. I want to warn you, if you go and rob a bank, there's going to be real problems. And
well, shouldn't there be consequences?
But your answer would be like, why are you telling me not to rob a bank?
Here's my answer. My answer is I never planned on robbing a bank. I don't do anything illegal, so I don't have to worry. But for those people who think they can get away with breaking the law, that they should know there are consequences. And unfortunately, too many times, we have seen people who have voted multiple times in elections or committed election fraud, and they haven't been prosecuted. Some have, but not enough.
Wait. But again, this has been investigated time and again, and the people who voted twice, and the whole thing about the dead people on the... I mean, the number of investigations and re-investigations. Don't you think it's time to drop that whole 2020 was rigged thing?
But Dan, here's the thing.
I mean, I would think you, of all people, would be saying, you know what, we should stop talking about that.
We're focused on 2024.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. If one person votes who's not supposed to, it's one person too many, and there has to be consequences for that. And I recall very vividly when the media refused to look at those individuals who we knew who died and still voted in the last election. Now, their argument will be, well, there wasn't enough to overturn the outcome of the election.
But they investigated those situations. They figured out what happened. In each of those cases, I remember every dead person because they had a list of them, right? Every one of them. We knew each dead person, oh, it was the son, it was the this, it was the that. You know, again, it feels like it's an issue that you who want Donald Trump to focus on policy and want Donald Trump to focus, as you said, on the people who are sitting at home worrying about how to pay their bills, that he wouldn't want to focus on this, which is why I was surprised, I should say, to see a disciplined, much more disciplined Donald Trump today in this speech that just ended in New York.
Look, he's disciplined, he's focused. His policies and those of Kamala Harris are so fundamentally different that this election is not about 2 individuals who are similar or have a similar view of the world. Donald Trump has outlined his positions, and we're still waiting to see what Kamala Harris's positions are.
I know you hate this question. I kind of hate it, too, to some degree, about, like, whether Donald Trump's going to accept the results of the election. It just feels like, you know, every time he or you or whoever does an interview, oh, it's Donald... But, you know, he keeps saying these things that make us have to keep asking this question, right? So here's something that he said to CBS recently about this question, and he's been giving sort of similar wishy-washy answers on this. Let's listen.
Will you accept the results of this election?
Absolutely. I assume it's going to be a fair election. If it's going to be a fair and free election, the answer is absolutely I will.
What, you didn't accept the results of the last election?
Well, that's right, because there were many problems with the last election. You know it.
I mean, that's the thing. Shouldn't he just say?
He shall accept it, but don't forget this, Dan. Hillary Clinton has still never accepted the results
She
of the
has.
2016
She conceded the election.
Dozens of times she said that Donald Trump didn't win that election. Dozens of times she said she...
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your screen. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.